Dewey the Library Cat by Vicki Myron with Bret Witter. Chapter 18. Dewey Makes Headlines. It's amazing. Sometimes when you stop running and start relaxing, the world comes to you. Or if not the world, then at least Iowa. Soon after the Shopko contest, Dewey was the subject of Chuck Offenberger's Iowa Boy column in the Des Moines Register. Iowa Boy was one of those columns that said things like, "It was the most shocking piece of news I'd come across since the time a few years ago when I found the Cleghorn Public Library, just down the road a ways, had started checking out cake pans to its patrons." Yes, in Iowa, many of the libraries have pans for baking cakes. When I read the article about Dewey, I thought, wow, the Dews really made it. It was one thing for a town to adopt a cat. It was even better for a region to adopt that cat, as Northwest Iowa had with Dewey. The library received visitors every day from small towns and farms in surrounding counties. Summer residents of the Iowa Lake Country drove down to meet him, then spread the word to their neighbors and guests, who would drive down the following week. He appeared frequently in the newspapers of nearby towns, but the Des Moines Register? That was the daily newspaper in the state capital. The Des Moines Register was read all over the state. More than 500,000 people were probably reading about Dewey right now. That was more people than attend the Clay County Fair. After Iowa Boy, Dewey started making regular appearances on our local television newscast, which originates out of Sioux City, Iowa, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Soon, he began appearing on stations in other cities and states. Every segment started the same way, with a voiceover. "The Spencer Library wasn't expecting anything more in their drop box than books on a freezing January morning." No matter how they framed it, the picture was the same. A poor kitten, almost frozen to death, begging for help. The story of Dewey's arrival at the library was irresistible. But so was his personality. Most news crews weren't used to filming cats. There were thousands of cats in northwest Iowa, no doubt, but few ever made it on television. So they always started out with what seemed like a good idea. Just have him act natural. Well, there he is, sleeping in a box with his tail hanging out and his stomach oozing over the side. That's as natural as it gets. 5 seconds later, "Maybe he can jump or something?" Dewey always gave them what they wanted. He jumped over the camera for a flying action shot. He walked between two displays to show his dexterity. He ran and jumped off the end of a shelf. He played with a child. He played with his red yarn. He sat quietly on top of the computer and stared into the camera. He wasn't showing off. Posing for the camera was part of Dewey's job as publicity director for the library. So he did it. Enthusiastically. Dewey's appearance on Living in Iowa, an Iowa public television series that focuses on issues, events, and people in the state of Iowa, was typical. The Living in Iowa crew met me at the library at 7:30 in the morning. Dewey was ready. He rolled. He jumped between the shelves. He walked up and put his nose on the camera. He stuck right by the side of the beautiful young host, totally winning her over. "Can I hold him?" she asked. I showed her the Dewey carry. Over the left shoulder, never the right, with his behind in the crook of your arm. If you wanted to hold him for any length of time, you had to use the Dewey carry. "He's doing it!" the host whispered excitedly as Dewey draped over her shoulder. Dewey's head popped up. What did she say? "How do I get him to calm down?" "Just pet him." The host stroked his back. Dewey lay his head on her shoulder and cuddled against her neck. "He's doing it! He's really doing it! I can feel him purring." I was tempted to tell her, of course he's doing it, he does it for everyone. But why spoil her excitement? Dewey's episode aired a few months later. It was called A Tale of Two Kitties. It's a play on the famous Charles Dickens book A Tale of Two Cities. The other kitty was Tom, who lived in Kirby's Hardware in Conrad, Iowa. Like Dewey, Tom was found on the coldest night. Store owner Ralph Kibbe took the frozen stray to the vet's office. "They gave him $60 worth of shots," he said on the program, "and said if he's still alive in the morning, he may have a chance." As I watched the show, I realized why the host was so happy with Dewey that morning. There were at least 30 seconds of footage of Dewey lying on her shoulder. The best she could get from Tom was a sniff of her finger. Well, now Dewey was really famous. Pretty soon, we had 3 or 4 people a week coming into the library to show Dewey off to their friends. "We're here to see the famous cat," an older man said, approaching the desk. "He's sleeping in the back. I'll go get him." "Thanks," he said, motioning to a younger woman with a little blonde girl hiding behind her leg. "I wanted my granddaughter Lydia to meet him. She's from Kentucky." When Lydia saw Dewey, she smiled and looked up at her grandfather. "Go ahead, sweetie. Dewey won't bite." The girl tentatively stretched out her hand to Dewey. 2 minutes later, she was stretched out on the floor, petting him. "See?" her grandfather said to the little girl's mother. "I told you it was worth the trip." Later, while the mother was petting Dewey with her daughter, the grandfather came up to me and said, "Thanks so much for adopting Dewey." It seemed he wanted to say more, but I think we both understood he had already said enough. 30 minutes later, as they were leaving, I heard the young woman tell the older man, "You were right, Dad. That was great. I wish we had come by sooner." "Don't worry, Mommy," the little girl said. "We'll see Dewey next year, too." Basic rules for cats who have a library to run, according to Dewey Read More Books. First printed in the Library Cat Society newsletter, and since reprinted numerous times around the world. Number 1. Staff. If you are feeling particularly lonely and wanting more attention from the staff, sit on whatever papers, project, or computer they happen to be working on at the time. But sit with your back to the person and act aloof, so as not to appear too needy. Also, be sure to continually rub against the leg of the staff person who is wearing dark brown, blue, or black for maximum effect. Number 2. Patrons. No matter how long the patron plans on staying at the library, climb into their briefcase or book bag for a long, comfortable sleep until they must dump you out on the table in order to leave. Number 3. Ladders. Never miss an opportunity to climb on ladders. It does not matter which human is on the ladder. It only matters that you get to the top and stay there. Number 4. Closing time. Wait until 10 minutes before closing time to get up from your nap. Just as the staff is getting ready to turn out the lights and lock the door, do all your cutest tricks in an effort to get them to stay and play with you. Although this doesn't work very often, sometimes they can't resist giving in to one short game of hide-and-seek. Number 5. Boxes. Your humans must realize that all boxes that enter the library are yours. It doesn't matter how large, how small, or how full the box should be. It is yours. If you cannot fit your entire body into the box, then use whatever part of your body fits to assume ownership for nap time. I have used 1 or 2 paws, my head, or even just my tail to gain entry, and each works equally well for a truly restful sleep. Number 6. Meetings. No matter the group, timing, or subject matter, if there is a meeting scheduled in the meeting room, you have an obligation to attend. If they have shut you out by closing the door, cry pitifully until they let you in or until someone opens the door to use the restroom or get a drink of water. After you gain entry, be sure to go around the room and greet each attendee. If there is a film or slideshow, climb on any table close to the screen, settle in, and watch the film to its conclusion. As the credits roll, feign extreme boredom and leave the meeting before it ends. And the Library Cat's golden rule for all time: never forget, nor let humans forget, that you own the joint.